Hello and welcome. If this is your first time here, you've stumbled upon the Antagonist role-playing game channel. Channel dedicated to exploring and explaining the brand new tabletop RPG written by yours truly. If this is indeed your first time here, you can get an introduction to the game from the link below, which will take you over to the first video in the series. If you already know about this game, this video is going to discuss many people's favorite part of any role-playing game: character creation. And when I say many people, I include myself in that category. Nothing quite stimulates the imagination like a blank character sheet. Who is this person going to be? How are they going to deal with the world the Game Master throws them into? How are they going to deal with the other player characters? Possibilities are nearly endless, but bounded by a few constraints we like to call character creation rules. So let's get into it, shall we? We start at the illustrious page 34, where I give a checklist of the steps involved in character creation. If you're on the internet, you must love lists. Granted, this isn't a list of top 10 Harry Potter characters who chew bubblegum, but it's almost as good. So it says to pick concept. Well, I've got just one in mind. This is one of the commissioned art pieces from the book. I gotta say, this charming character's disposition really speaks to me. She's interesting, and I want to know more about her. So I'm going to take this opportunity to make some stuff up. First, we need a name. Now, I'm a bit torn between whether this woman is a Hilda or a Gretchen. As much as I love the name Gretchen, I gotta say she feels more like a Hilda to me. Sounds like an offhanded choice, and it is, but this name tells us a lot about the character if you delve into the lore and culture of the game world a bit. Most of the Empire is descended from the La Gente, a people ethnically based on a mixture of Spanish and Aztecs. Hilda doesn't sound very Spanish, but there are a lot of other people in the Empire besides just the La Gente. Emperor Malgus has made his name through conquest, so let's say Hilda is from one of those conquered regions. How she feel about that? Doesn't seem like the sort to take things lying down to me. So let's say she's not really traditionally been in tune with the Empire's goals. That's probably enough for a beginning concept, and we've got the rest of the list to work through, so let's get going. Next, we get to choose backgrounds. It says between 0 and 3. If we read further, the backgrounds are split into rare, uncommon, and common. Common backgrounds count as 1, uncommon count as 2, and rare count as all 3. Of course, you don't need to choose all 3 or even any. Each background has benefits and drawbacks, and you may decide you're happier with fewer. Hilda, though, she goes the distance. We're going to choose a rare background for her, and I've got just the thing in mind. Fallen hero. Heroes are the terms the book uses to refer to those who have been blessed by mysterious forces with powers far beyond most mortals, with the expectation that they will challenge the Emperor's will. But the game takes place in the Empire with the expectation that our characters ultimately end up serving it, or at least paying lip service to that fact. So this background is for heroes that have turned their back on their calling, but still maintain some small semblance of their previous abilities. We'll come back to that, though. Next, we determine our virtues. In Antagonist, the virtues represent our character's natural talents in areas philosophically idealized by the Empire's culture. Taking a look at the character sheet, we see there's 9 of them, split into 3 major domains that most of the things in this game are split into: personal, economic, and social. Most of the personal virtues are self-explanatory, so I'm going to go over the rest here. Acumen refers to business acumen, and specifically indicates a character's ability to manipulate the roughshod and patchwork economy to advantage oneself. This virtue is used both when managing your own money and property, as well as making economic attacks to attempt to ruin your rivals. Authority is the ability to manage your more sentient property. Technically, there aren't slaves in the Empire, but it's still a hierarchical system, and some people end up serving others. The greater your authority, the better you can manage the particular people that end up serving you. Lore isn't just book learning, it's also knowing where to find the information you're looking for. and sometimes what you're looking for is illicit magical artifacts that power rituals. Yes, this is what wizards use in their ritual magic, but it also lets you research history. Between the two, the wizardry is technically the more illegal, by the way. On to the social virtues. First of which is honor. Why would you want to be honorable in the world of Antagonist? Well, that's not really a question here, because the honor virtue is not how honorable you necessarily are, but rather how honorable you're capable of appearing. Having a lot of this, and people will trust you, for better or worse. Glory is similarly not how impressive you actually are, but rather how impressive you can appear. It's used in tandem with authority for military endeavors, as well as the intimidation and boasting. Finally, intrigue is used to get a read on other people's motivations and intents. It's used as a secondary attribute in almost anything that involves dealing with people. Now, Antagonist uses two build options. Quick build mostly sets your attributes to be standardized according to your background. You can modify them a little bit, but there's not as much room for personalizing your character. The upside is that there isn't much math to do either. But as I've made a handy-dandy spreadsheet available to do all the math for you, link below by the way, I'm going to use the highly customizable point-buy method. So let's go to the spreadsheet. Now you'll need to make a copy of the spreadsheet for yourself. As I said, it to just be readable. But once you do that, you can modify it to your heart's content. Label this copy Hilda. So the first thing is some instructions. Normally you'd read these, but I'm walking you through it, so let's skip those and the name and concept that we already have. So we get to the first mathy bits, backgrounds. Let's find our background from this table over on the lower right. We copy and paste fallen hero. And all associated track modifiers into the table above, and boom, it's going to modify all our virtue tracks to fit with our new background. Although, Fallen Hero is a bit unique in that it gives us a choice of two different tracks. It says that we've got a choice to set our brawn to 3 and our finesse to 1, or vice versa. So, back to the spreadsheet. And we'll fill in those two missing tracks, putting the brawn at 3 and the finesse at 1, because that's just how Hilda rolls. It's pretty rare for a background to give a choice of a modifier, so normally you can just cut and paste and be done with it. But if you see these little hash marks, you'll need to make some kind of choice. Now, really quickly, virtue tracks determine how expensive in points it is to raise or advance with experience a given virtue. Your background determines what virtue tracks you're on. Tracks start at 4. If they go down, the corresponding virtue becomes more expensive. If they go up, the corresponding virtue gets cheaper. If they go up high enough, we can actually buy our virtues above 6, which is the normal maximum. We've got 100 points to spend, and those can go pretty quickly between 9 virtues, so keep an eye out for what's cheap. In addition, each background usually has 2 special attributes, usually something good and something bad. We see here under special traits that Fallen Hero gets the ability to protect their allies better, but is shamed by their past rebellion. We normally note these here on the spreadsheet, but I'll skip that part for now. Now you can see that the sheet has modified all our tracks for us. If we were doing this by hand, we'd reference the table on page 57 of the core book. Pictured here. Alright, I'm going to rush through this. Looks like Hilda's pretty formidable. So I'm going to set her personal stats pretty high. I don't think I'm going to make her a sorcerer. Maybe she used to be until she fell, but we'll say she lost her powers when she abandoned her status as a rebel of the Empire. For economic virtues, the only one I can really see Hilda having much of is authority. She looks like she wears commoner's garb, and she doesn't seem to be the sort too into research, so we'll set her authority pretty high, but we'll keep the other two low. Finally, we have the social virtues. Glory, honor, Hilda's all about that. We'll say she's convincing enough to have actually started a rebellion for her people, however short-lived, and glorious enough to lead it. Intrigue? Doesn't seem like her strong suit. We'll dump that. Alright, got some preliminary virtues lined up. I got my total point cost spent here. According to the rules, we get 100 points, but I can fiddle with that later to make the points work out. And remember, you can save these to spend later, so it doesn't need to be exact. Not going to make you watch me do that bit. Next, we choose skills, spells, and rituals. We'll keep this simple and skip the magic stuff, and just choose some skills. In Antagonist, every skill makes you better at something, giving you advantage with tasks associated with it, and then additionally, they also give you a special ability of some sort that unskilled people just can't do. Down at the bottom of the spreadsheet, I put a full list of skills, as well as a quick description of the special ability they give you. As an ex-rebel, I think Highwayman would be a likely skill Hilda developed. So I'm going to copy that into the skills section. She also seems like she could be the sort that would mess you up with her bare hands. So I'm going to take Unarmed Savant as her second skill. After that, you know what? I'm going to go Chirurgeon. It's not something you pick up from looking at her, but she's an ex-hero. It makes sense she'd know how to care for her people. Patch them back together if necessary. Skills out of the way, we're on to relationships. Now this is meant to be a place to designate your character's relationships with the other player characters. Why is that so important? Well, there's nothing in the base setting that demands that the player characters are necessarily working together. But you're all gathered around the same table, so you have to provide what the setting doesn't. A reason why this probably quite disparate set of people is all hanging out, helping each other in their schemes. As part of this, you should be making your character with the other players in the game, working out why you're working together and how you know each other. Since I'm the only one in this game, I'm going to play the part of Julio Montoya, Hilda's fellow player character and current character companion. We'll say Julio was the one that convinced Hilda to turn against her destiny of rebellion and plead for forgiveness from the Emperor. He managed to convince her that she was doing more harm to her people than good, and as a commanding officer of the military sent to stop her, offered her clemency in exchange for giving up her crusade. However, his political rivals seized on his leniency towards the traitor to discredit Julio and have him kicked out of the Empire's military, losing his previously illustrious rank. Out of a mixture of gratitude and pity, Hilda now accompanies Julio as they seek revenge, reparation, we'll figure it out later. They're friends now. Now we move on to our defenses. This is just a bunch of point allocations with rules set up on the spreadsheet or in the book that let you choose how hard it is for someone to mess with your character in various ways. As with most everything else, Defenses have three domains: personal, economic, and social, and defend against death, ruin, and disgrace, respectively. Starting with well-being, color-coded red on the spreadsheet, Hilda is probably much better suited against physical and social threats than economic. So I'm going to follow these rules off to the side here and set her prosperity to the lowest value of 2, which is how much economic damage she can take. All these rules are in the book as well, of course, by the by. We'll set her health at the highest, 4, and reputation just a bit lower than that at 3. And we add 3 points between them. I'm going to add 1 to each. And voila, done. Next, we split 3 points between defenses, color-coded blue, on the spreadsheet. Before we were determining how much damage she could take, now we're figuring out how hard she is to damage in the first place. I'm going to follow a similar formula here, assigning 3 points. All defenses start at 8, so 2 points to personal defense, 1 point to social defense, and I'll leave economic defense at 8. These defenses represent the target numbers necessary to deal damage to Hilda during a test. Now we have resources, color-coded green this time. Again, split between the 3 domains. Determination is our personal resource, which fuels exceptional bouts of personal capability. Wealth makes the world go round and keeps us well supplied with minions and properties and swag. Finally, influence is how well we quantify how favored we are by the movers and shakers in the empire, and how many favors we can call in to get what we want done. I'm going to break with tradition here and say Hilda probably doesn't have any influence to speak of, so following the equation in green, I'll set the minimum of 1 to her influence value. Determination. Yeah, she's the determined sort, so we're going to set that at the highest value of 3. Wealth, well, not sure why she'd have this, but she's probably a capable laborer when it comes to it, and maybe Julio helps her out a bit. We'll set this to 2. Then I'm just going to throw all 3 points into determination. And done. Next, we choose our position in society. This would normally be based on how much influence you have. Right here. You'd find a position and maybe a duty that represented how important your character was. However, Hilda is not well regarded, so we're going to go to this table here and take the least influential option, unrecognized. She's not technically a fugitive, as Julio's clemency stuck, but she's persona non grata in most of the areas of the empire. Now, she does have enough influence to either be an indentured servant or a free commoner if she wanted, but that doesn't really fit with her background. So unrecognized it is. Now, you'll note that being unrecognized gives us the shame 1 trait, which gives us disadvantage on some types of social tests. But also, she's so far removed from the social order that this position gives us social protection 8, which can reduce the damage to our reputation. Sort of the nowhere to go but up principle at work here. Next, we go up a couple pages. To the property list to see what Hilda can own. This is specifically where she lives or keeps her stuff. According to her wealth level of 2, it looks like she can be a vagabond, rent a place, or own her own house. While she probably travels around with Julio, we can imagine that due to their wealth level, she can afford to stay in taverns and the like, which is the equivalent of a rented abode. So we'll take that one. That doesn't come with any special traits, so onward. Moving finally back to our list, and done all this, Now, we're going to choose some trappings. Now, normally you go through and choose some items that represent your character's personality and wealth level. But honestly, you don't need me to show you how to go shopping, nor would you particularly want to follow my example as a shopper. There's an item list in the book, a couple of them, where you can pick stuff up. The only thing you really need to know is that you don't usually use money in this game. It's more focused on big concepts of economics and the power of wealth, and less focused on counting how many gold pieces you need to buy your next armor upgrade. Hilda has a wealth level of 2, so she starts with one item that has a wealth requirement of 2, 2 items that have a wealth requirement of 1, and as many items with a wealth requirement of 0 as she would reasonably have. If her wealth level had been 5 instead, she would get 1 item at level 5, 2 items at level 4, and as much as she wanted at level 3 or below. Once that's done, we'll copy everything we've put down to a character sheet like this one. And there you have it. Hilda, the ex-rebel turned medieval A-team member. This video has gone longer than I intended, so I'm going to cut it off here. But if you have any questions, feel free to drop them as a comment below. There's a list of character-related resources to explore in the link section of the video, so enjoy!